Journalist and Matthew Horace joining me now to talk through this. Matthew, I want to show you some video that we just obtained from the beginning of the chase. It seems in this video like Daniel is pulled over, and this is, again, at the beginning of the chase. There is interaction with the police officer, and then Daniel pulls away, and the chase begins. The video is a little shaky, so it's hard to see. I watched this over and over again. What is going through, Matthew, the police officer's mind right now as this chase begins after he had just pulled this man over?
Well, good afternoon, Yasmin. This is a tragic situation, and I think everyone should understand that, what happens between the time lawful commands are given and compliance is either given or not is a very critical time. And in this case, the trooper gets back in the vehicle. At this point, he's thinking that we have a real problem on our hands, and that problem could be a threat to himself or others, and that's exactly what the trooper is thinking at that moment.
So Daniel's brother has actually told reporters that Daniel was scared of the police and that officers need to learn to handle people that have disabilities. They need to learn ways to handle people that have disabilities. Is that part of your training? And what is the protocol when dealing with someone that has a disability?
Well, generally it is a part of our training, Yasmin. However, whenever there's a communication lapse or a problem with communication, there's a potential for deadly and tragic interaction. Now, take this case one step further. The trooper gives lawful commands to stay in your vehicle, don't move, get on the ground, put your hands up, and the person can't hear those commands. The trooper says, don't move, stay where you are, and the person goes and reaches in a pocket for something and ends up being shot by police, and instead of finding a gun, we find a sign that says, I am deaf. Tragic consequences, communication lapse. I'm sure the trooper, I'm sure the is just as upset as the public is about this, but it does and it can and it will happen whenever there's a problem with communication.
Well, it's important to know we don't know that that's what happened. That was just a scenario that you were giving. We don't know if Daniel actually reached in his pocket and tried to show him something, so important to note that. But what is the training? What is the protocol? How are you supposed to deal with someone that you believe could feasibly be deaf that you've just pulled over?
Well, we get training once we've identified that there is an issue that may lead to a misinterpretation of facts. In this case, the trooper may or may not have even known that the suspect or the person was deaf, and that's where the problem. We're trained to assess situations when we identify a problem to deal with it accordingly. In a case like this, the trooper may not have known, he may not have known, and the person may not have heard the commands. So we still have to wait on this one for the investigation. There may not have been anything done wrong on either side of the fence. This could be a misinterpretation and communication problem from the beginning to the end.
All right, so let me just put this out there for you, Matthew. To avoid this sort of tragedy moving forward, should there be laws put in place that require those with a disability to identify their disability if they are driving a car, for instance, on the outside of their car, something that is on the outside of the car that says, I am deaf. So if they are pulled over by a police officer, that officer knows when approaching that vehicle, they're dealing with someone who cannot hear.
Well, perhaps even that, or perhaps some sort of identifier on the license plate so that people understand that the person in the vehicle may not understand lawful commands may help the situation. So anything that will help make things safer for everyone, we all have to be in for.
What do you think? This officer currently on administrative leave, should be held accountable?
Well, I'm sure he's going to be held accountable. The question becomes held accountable to what, for what? Did he act within the scope of reason? Was he doing things that he thought were appropriate at the time? Did he give lawful commands that may or may not been following? Let's face it, that video shows that he had interaction with the person got back in the vehicle and left. So that's the initial noncompliance. And we're trained to believe and think that when our commands are not complied with, that graduated level of noncompliance can yield deadly results even for law enforcement.
Also important to note there, from what we understand, Daniel was not armed, and that's from what we know. Matthew Horace, thanks so much. Always appreciate talking.